Okay, welcome back everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Now, before I show you part one of how I gathered my inspiration to create this landscape, this is really part two. So back in the studio again and showing you guys this process of how I prepare my mediums and my painting materials, in this case a Italian paper, before I continue creating the landscape. Now here's a little bit of a statement as to what happened yesterday, and I will show you guys that video in a minute. Pretty much yesterday we went out early in the morning to film in the Australian bushland and take you behind the scenes of when I go out and how I gather my inspiration, what I look for, some of the things that are going through my mind, etc, etc. And in particularly also I wanted you guys to feel the noises, the early morning noises that have an actual impact on how I create. Unfortunately, here's what happened. We went out early, sunshine, which was really, really great. And then my microphone decided to play up and pretty much began to buzz throughout the whole recording. And again, I only noticed this when I came back to see what I filmed. Highly disappointing. Nonetheless, the footage is still great, and I will do my best to put the subtitles underneath, which you guys can have a look, read, and also have a look to see the backstory of the Australian bushland and how I gather my inspiration. So here is that first part of me gathering inspiration for the landscape, and hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and in the meantime I'll start prepping and doing part number two, which is back in the studio, and show you guys what I do from there forward once I've gathered my inspiration. Morning, what we're doing is I want to go and gather some art inspiration, art ideas, which then I'm going to bring back into the studio, and I'm going to show you how to incorporate those ideas and create unique pieces of artwork. So it's going to be a really, really cool session this morning. It's probably about 8 a.m. in the morning, and the reason why I chose to go out this early is it's just purely for the heat. It's coolness which is necessary for me to do this. And the second biggest reason, of course, is lighting. I would have loved to, of course, gone out a little bit earlier, but that just requires far too much organization, and it means that I have to go to bed far more earlier the previous night. So 8 o'clock is good, but we'll see what we're going to get as we get to this particular place and show you guys around the Australian bushland. So the place that we're actually going this morning is called the Boxvale Track, which is down in the Southern Highlands in New South Wales, Australia. And it's a really cool walking track that a lot of the locals use. I'm not sure how popular it is with visitors because it's not quite the most scenic thing to do, I suppose, but I quite like it because it's intimate and quiet. It's not a lot of people that come here, but I like it because it's got some, almost it feels untouched. And so, by going through the whole track and walking around the bushland, it just feels like no one's ever been there before, which is quite nice and quite unique in terms of when you're looking for something to take out of it and then create artworks with it. So that's where we're going. That's what we're doing this morning. I don't think the sunlight... hope you find and saw exactly what I do in order to find different ideas, different inspirations, different perspectives to how I want to create artworks, and also at the same time take me into new directions. So some of those things that you saw me gather yesterday, I've actually got them on the bench right now, which is of course, I will leave the camera there, but these are the leaves, some of that bark, and I'll bring that closer. You guys can have a look at that. There's some of that bark that I gathered yesterday, and of course some of the leaves as well. So what I did was I started playing around with an arrangement and almost like putting it together like a still life arrangement and seeing what basically connected with me that I felt when I was out in the bush itself, and how can I recreate that emotion from walking through the sticks, the noises, the sounds, into a semi or pseudo bush floor on my table, and then obviously transpire that and transpose that onto a piece of paper as a drawing, acrylic, perhaps even incorporate a little bit of oil paint in there. So that's the process that I'm doing right now. I've played around with a still life setup that I think I'm happy with. I'll give you guys some photographs in this process, and you can have a look at that. But in the meantime, I'm going to take you now through tea and coffee staining my piece of paper in order again to add that irregularity, add that depth of the orange bush floor, the dry leaves, the decaying earth that I was witnessing as I was gathering the bark and the leaves. So I want to actually begin to recreate that on my piece of paper. So here we go.
In common.